All right, everybody, I'm back, and today this is one of the videos I've been most excited to film for you guys, which is the 21 Tweaks, the Daily Dozen app. We're going to dive into that. It is free, so if you don't have it yet, I encourage you to pause this video, go get this free app, and then you can walk through it with me. It really explains it all within the app. I'm just going to kind of talk through it as well. So we're going to start there. So pause now if you don't have it. Go grab it right now. Delete something you're not using off your device and add that app. I had to do that for my iPad. So bye-bye Zoom. It's now the Daily Dozen app. So I'm going to start with the Daily Dozen was originally from his book, Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, which we've referenced several times. So I'm not going to stick in that area very much. I'm going to go through the 21 tweaks a little bit more, but I'll talk through them really quickly. And so the idea is that this is 12 things that you want to make sure you're doing every single day. And then in the app, it's really cool how he has little check mark boxes that you can go in and tally for yourself to make sure that you're getting all of those things in the quantities that he recommends. So he's got on here beans, berries, fruits, vegetables, and that's cruciferous vegetables, greens, other vegetables, including mushrooms, carrots, etc., flax seeds, ground flax seeds, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, whole grains, beverages, and the ideal is water, and then exercise. And at the very bottom, he has supplements, which he encourages everybody to take a B12 supplement. So then within there's also a little icon that you can click. It's the letter I. And it has a lot more explanation for each of those sections. Some of them, including the hydration section here, have several videos that link to his website, nutritionfacts.org. And so he dives into each of those sections a lot more deeply. So if you haven't read the book and you want to dive in to the Daily Dozen, I encourage you to click through those things, click on the question mark, or I'm sorry, the information icon, and you can get some more information within it. And of course, then he's also explaining how much of each of these things and what herbs and what different whole grains, etc., that he recommends. So that is what he already had available to everyone from his original book, How Not to Die. So he has updated the app to add the 21 tweaks, which were pulled from this book. So How Not to Die, it really dives into, look, we're going to take all of this information that we have found across various studies and say, if you're doing all the best stuff, the whole food plant-based diet, you're eating these things in these quantities every single day, which even if you're not exclusively whole food plant-based, if you are doing the Daily Dozen, you probably don't have a whole lot of room in your day and in your diet to add much else, which is kind of the point, right? So if you're doing all that stuff and you're just not seeing the weight loss that you're hoping to see or that you're expecting, he's given some extra turbo boosts. And that's what he calls the 21 tweaks. So that's what we're going to dive into today. I've referenced them several times throughout various videos and posts on our Facebook group, but we're going to just kind of dive into those a little bit further today. So if you're on the app, go ahead and select on the bottom 21 tweaks, and we're going to start at the top. So the first thing he recommends is preloading with water. He's got 3 little icons for you to tally 3 times that day because for 3 meals. So you're going to preload each meal with 2 cups of cool or cold water, ideally, before each of your meals. And every time you do that, you'll select that icon. And then the next one is negative calorie preload. So I did a separate video on this just a couple days ago, but what his idea is that you would eat before a meal, you would eat an apple or what he calls green light foods from his How Not to Die book. He explains what a green light food is. But basically you're looking for like a soup or a salad, something that is less than 100 calories per cup. So my suggestion was those little V8 cans of V8 juice. He recommends specifically low sodium V8 juice as well. That's not something I'd ever used before until reading this book. My mom had, as I shared, and so I was familiar with them, but it seemed like an adult food that I never tried. So I was actually really surprised that I did enjoy it. I'm not actually a big tomato fan. I like tomatoes on sandwiches. I like cherry tomatoes cut up in my salad, but I don't love tomato sauces. I'm the like light tomato sauce on my pizza kind of gal. I don't love red marinara, but I'll use it, and I just like use less of it. So I'm surprised that I liked it so much. It's got kind of a sweet and savory kind of flavor, so it just feels weird drinking this kind of savory soup-like drink. But I've learned that I really like it ice cold, and it's a very easy thing to throw in a bag or throw in my van when I know I'm gonna need a snack before our next meal. He says incorporate vinegar. So I know we've talked about, and it may have been in a comment section somewhere that someone posted about the Olive Tap, which is a company that makes very fancy olive oils and vinegars. This is something that I have seen shared throughout multiple whole food plant-based groups and just people that I follow. This Olive Tap is just really cool. And the one that I kept seeing shared was the chocolate vinegar, which seemed too good to be true, but everybody said it tastes just like chocolate. So of course, I finally decided, after reading this book and reading the benefits of incorporating vinegar into my diet, I decided to try it. And let me tell you, they were not lying. I got some chocolate vinegar. I originally tried it on a salad and it was decent. It was really good on a fruit salad. It tastes like you're just drizzling chocolate sauce over your fruit salad, like spinach, strawberries, blueberries, that kind of thing. And so it's kind of replacing the sugar-filled poppy seed that my kids and my husband really like, the poppy seed dressing. But I also got a mango vinegar, and so I'm just loving it. So I highly encourage it. I actually bought 2. Shipping was a little expensive, so I decided to go ahead and just stock up. But typically I use balsamic vinegar. That's what I'll sprinkle on my daily salad that I eat at lunchtime. It's a savory salad, but I've also started incorporating it in some of my cashew sauces and other sauces that I'm making where you don't really taste it, but they need just a little bit of that acidic flavor. I tend to use sometimes apple cider vinegar, but I was going with lemon juice before, so now I'm just trying to incorporate the vinegar. But he recommends 2 teaspoons with each meal. I'm not quite there yet, just to be honest with you. I'm doing it every day at least once a day in my lunch salads, but that's about as much as I've gotten. Some people do drink it. He doesn't recommend you drink it straight. If you do drink it in a large glass of water, just make sure you rinse your mouth out afterwards, because the acidity can really erode your enamel of your teeth. So ideally you would just be incorporating it as a part of your salad or any other element of your food. All right, the next one is one of my most difficult tweaks. I'm definitely struggling with this one, but it's the undistracted meals. We also talked about this a little bit a couple days ago as well, but the idea is that if we're not paying attention, if our brains aren't aware of what we're eating, then we are overeating, we're overindulging. So it's just trying to settle down and have more mindful meals, which may mean that you take away all meals that you were eating in front of a TV. That's something I have shifted at. I was occasionally letting the kids eat while watching TV. We do a morning PBS Kids show. I was letting breakfast kind of trickle into that, and now I've said, nope, we can have breakfast after the show's over. You can pause your show and go eat breakfast. And typically I'm realizing that we were really associating food with TV. So the TV would come on and, oh, Mom, I'm hungry. So that's actually been a really big help for the kids. But for me, I'm struggling a bit with, I finally get the kids down for a nap and it's my turn to eat lunch, and I really just want something to entertain me while I'm eating my lunch. And so then I'll find myself on social media. I'll find myself watching, right now it's like Olympic trial stuff, which is constantly on the TV. So that's one of the areas I'm struggling with quite a bit. But undistracted meals 3 times a day. All right, the next is the 20-minute rule. Kind of goes alongside the undistracted meal. We just want to make sure that we are really being aware of what we are eating and slowing down our food eating, and so it's actually more of an event than just something we're quickly rushing through, because again, we want to be mindful, we want to be aware of what we're eating. Now he gives some tips on how to slow down our meals. There were a variety of studies done on what's the best way, and you can really do several things. You can decrease your bite size, increase the number of chews. This is where drinking a smoothie or a shake, which is very common for a lot of folks who are doing weight losses, replacing with these meal shakes, the Slim Fasts and the other protein shakes, protein powders that you'll find. The problem is you can so quickly consume those, and then all of a sudden you're like, it's the opposite. You're losing the value of the slower meal. So what's the opposite of a smoothie would be like your chewy food. So, you know, like that sourdough bread, how crunchy and chewy it is. That's what I always think about. Ideally, you're not going with sourdough bread, but if you're gonna go with bread, sourdough is not too bad. But so try to find ways that you can increase the time that the food is in your mouth in order to help slow down your food. Again, this is probably the second most difficult thing for me because and I heard this from a lot of teachers as well, I'm struggling not to rush through my food in order to make sure I get it eaten before I'm needed by one of the kids. And that's not always the case. Like sometimes all my kids are sitting around the table with me and we're totally fine, but I find myself just scarfing down my food for that reason. So that's one of the areas I'm definitely working on. All right, so here's an area called daily doses. So there's several different spices and herbs that he recommends trying to get in every day. Black cumin is one, a 1/4 teaspoon, and that's for appetite suppression. Garlic powder, this is an easy one for us because we use it in everything, on everything. I put it on my kids' tempeh when we make quesadillas. I put it in all of our cashew sauces. We use garlic all the time. But he says a 1/4 teaspoon, and that's for helping reduce body fat. Ground ginger, a teaspoon, 1/2 teaspoon cayenne, either of those will work, and that's for body weight, decreasing body weight. He recommends trying chai tea, which I love chai tea, which combines green tea, which we'll get to in just a second, with some of those spices as well. And then Nooch, we've talked about nutritional yeast, but Nooch can help facilitate weight loss, and again, it's a great source of vitamin B12, which is very important for anyone who's not consuming animals. The animals, again, get B12 from the dirt that they eat. We used to get B12 because we would eat produce that we took out of the ground, but now we are a highly sanitized society, which is good. We don't have a lot of really terrible and horrible diseases like cholera, but we also don't have B12 in our diet anymore. So we need to supplement. And then finally, cumin, a 1/2 teaspoon twice a day can help boost extra weight loss and decrease waist size. So before I continue, again, these are really small tweaks, but this is for the person who's already doing all of the whole food plant-based diet foods. They're checking off all the marks on the daily dozen and they're still not seeing the weight loss, or maybe they've plateaued in their weight loss and they're looking for just an extra little boost. So this is not gonna get you a huge amount of weight loss, but these little tweaks can help. And his point is, and my point for all of this is, what's it gonna hurt you, right? So it's plant foods, it's not gonna hurt you. And many of these, especially these herbs and spices, have so many other benefits. They're anti-inflammatory, antiviral. There's so many other great things that they can be doing in your body outside of helping facilitate any of these weight loss potential. So nutritional yeast, we eat by the spoonful. I just had to stock back up because we ran out, and oh my goodness, we went one entire meal without nutritional yeast. All right, so next is green tea. He recommends 3 cups a day. He thinks you should do that between meals so it doesn't interfere with iron absorption. And then hydration, did I skip one? Nope, cumin, green tea. Hydration, we talked about this a little bit on the video on exercise, but hydration, ideally you would identify based on the color of your urine, and it should be like a straw color, a very pale yellow. But for folks who are eating riboflavin fortified foods like nutritional yeast, that can affect the color of your urine. I actually haven't noticed that for us, but it can, I guess. I noticed with beets that can affect it as well. So if you're eating a lot of beets, Dwight Schrute, make sure that you are monitoring how many cups you're drinking. So for women, drink 9 cups a day. For men, 13. Deflower your diet, which by the way, that's another area I'm like, that reminds me that I need to drink more water. All right, hydration plug. All right, the next one is deflower your diet. Okay, so ideally we're gonna be getting our whole grains that are recommended from the Daily Dozen. We're gonna be getting those from intact grains. So think oat groats rather than quick oats. So you're wanting to get as much of those intact grains as possible. This is another really difficult one. I'll be honest with you, I've been trying to do a lot more intact grains and I can't get them at the store. I see them available, but when I add them to my cart and then I drive up, they're like, oh, we were out of stock of this. And so we subbed it with a not intact grain, so or something that doesn't make sense whatsoever. So that is one that I am struggling with a bit. But the idea is that we're trying to eat more, well, again, intact grains. That's all I need to say. But I will say, and he doesn't list this, I don't believe he lists this on the app here, but floured, and then the reason why we want to keep it intact grains is you lose a bit of the nutrition value once you flour it. And so, like the microbiome specifically needs the starch from the intact grain, that once it's kind of processed down, we're losing some of that. However, lentils in general, legumes, don't have that lost benefit when they're floured. So if you are looking for some pastas, for instance, or other floured food, and you want to kind of maintain that, integrity, the food integrity, legumes are a great source of that. So if you are looking for a pasta, as I said, a red lentil pasta would be a great option because you won't lose the starch for whatever reason. Legumes, there are some really scientific, very detailed reasons why the chemical makeup of a legume doesn't lose that in the flouring process. But for the purposes of this video, keep in mind that if you were looking for a healthier whole grain pasta, that red lentil pasta or lentil pasta would be a great option, or any kind of bean pasta, because it would keep some of that starch that is needed for the microbiome. Next, front load your calories. I think we did a post on this, but ideally we're gonna keep that, I don't know if you've heard the expression, but eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. There's a reason for that. Metabolically, our bodies process differently throughout the day, and so we are a lot better. The same food in the morning is going to be less fattening than that food at night. So ideally, we're going to be eating the majority of our calories in the first half of the day and slowing it down as we get closer to bedtime. And that kind of leads us into time restricting eating. And so we want to maintain an eating schedule that is 12 hours or less, and to end eating at around 7 p.m. ideally, because again, our body really does, it prefers to eat those calories and to burn those calories in the front of the day. Now, people have said, like, look, just think logically. We don't need calories when we're sleeping. We need calories throughout the day to support all of our actions. And so, we want to keep it on the front half for that reason. And I think I put something else. It's for circadian benefits. But again, we want to try to stop eating before 7 p.m. And this is something I have found very beneficial. I started doing this back when we read our gut health book back in January, Fiber Fueled. There we go. He recommended this as well, and now I'm seeing it pushed quite a bit among the whole food plant-based community, nutritionists as well. But I stopped eating around 7 p.m. We tend to eat dinner a little earlier, so it was around 7, but sometimes it was closer to 6:30. But I would stop eating after dinner, and then I would go to sleep without having eaten anything. I tend to work out in the evenings, but we'll touch on that in just a minute. And then I would typically eat breakfast around 9:30 or 10 o'clock the next day to get well over 12 hours. Now, I was drinking coffee first thing in the morning with creamer, so it wasn't a full 100% fast at that point, but that was still close to 12 hours by the time I was drinking coffee, which was typically around 7 a.m. It's backed up now. I'm waking up closer to 5:30, but it's still a pretty good food fast for sure. Exercise timing. So I dive into this quite a bit more in the video that I did a few weeks ago. So if you haven't checked that one out, look up the exercise video. But ideally, exercising, He recommends 90 minutes a day, moderate intensity, which is best for longevity. But basically he says, look, any time of day is good, any amount is good. Like, get what you can get in, but strive for 90 minutes a day of moderate intensity. Now you're gonna get the most benefits of exercise in a fasted state. So we dive into this, like I said in that video, but you can do it first thing in the morning, or if you're able to kind of cut off your lunch a little bit early, you can get that 7 hours of fast potentially after work. If you kind of do an early breakfast, early lunch, and then fast for 7 hours and perhaps work out after work, then you can potentially be in a semi-fasted state if nothing else. So extra benefits there. Now, if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, you may want to try exercising after your meal, specifically going back to our time restricted eating and the circadian benefit, all of the metabolic benefits of eating earlier in the day. That essentially ties into the fact that at dinner time, you're going to absorb a lot more of the sugar from your meal. So if you are diabetic or pre-diabetic, if you're prone to blood sugar issues, then consider working out instead after dinner, and it will help blunt that sugar rush in your blood. So if you start working out around 30 minutes after you finished eating and you work out for about an hour, you'll basically kind of absorb that sugar rush, and the exercise will help to blunt that. So ideally that will be what you choose if you do fall into that category. All right, weigh twice daily. This is a tough one. Basically, research showed that weighing every day is beneficial because it helps you to identify what you're doing and if it's working. If you're gaining weight and you're weighing yourself, once a day, then you're realizing, okay, whatever I'm doing is not working. I gotta switch. The problem can be, as a former coach, this was something we really discouraged because it really did discourage people. Weight loss is not typically something you're going to see on a day-to-day basis. It's more of a long-term look back at where you were. And so if you are one who's prone to being discouraged, then I don't necessarily find there's much value in doing that. But if you do feel the need to check off the boxes and to feel like, okay, I'm recording every single day what my weight loss is, the research that he presents in this book indicates that weighing twice a day, first thing in the morning and then last thing before you go to bed, helps you to identify and it helps you to better lose weight over time. So I tried that postpartum. Probably not the best time emotionally for me to be weighing myself twice a day. And again, I found myself discouraged, and I thought, you know what? I have had 4 kids now. I've not had problems losing the weight in the past. I don't do anything extreme. I just eat a whole food plant-based diet, and I'm active with my kids. And I do exercise too. So I'm like, you know what? I'm one of those people, I'm in the camp of I'll weigh myself every so often and then be pleasantly surprised when a couple pounds have come off. But if you're following along with Dr. Greger and you just want to go all in on his 21 tweaks, then weigh yourself first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening. And he gives you a little place on this app that you can record it as well. All right, and then complete your intentions. So this section is, getting 7 hours. Oh, I'm sorry, complete intentions. So this one is kind of a behavioral planning, behavioral recommendations where it encourages you to set your goals and to set your plans for what you're going to do if your goals don't work out. Like if your plan is to wake up every day, Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. and work out in the gym, but then on Thursday you have a coffee meeting and you realize that you have a coffee meeting the next morning and you can't work out, what are you going to do? So it's essentially helping to set those goals and come up with your alternatives and how you're going to come back from an injury or a reason why you can't complete that goal. The next one is fast after 7 p.m. We kind of talked about that just a moment ago. Sufficient sleep. This is something else that was really interesting to me is, and I've read it before, but I guess it just didn't really absorb until recently, but we really ideally should be getting 7 hours of sleep. A little bit more is okay, like 7 to 7.5 hours, but too much more is not okay. And too little is not okay. And basically they looked it up, and many of these studies showed that there are people who are getting too much sleep and it's just as detrimental as too little sleep. So this is something I've been really working on. I have been extremely blessed with a phenomenally snooze-filled baby, and so I'm getting all-nighters regularly, which I have not expected because my boys were certainly not like that. So when I realized that this was just the norm now, I started putting her down at a regular time, and then I was making myself go to bed at a regular time. I was kind of caught in that I need to sleep anytime I can sleep. But the reality was she was sleeping great, and so I was getting more sleep than I needed. So I've just recently started waking myself up at 5:30 every morning. I'm going to bed around 10, so I'm getting the perfect amount of sleep. Occasionally she'll start stirring at 5 and I'll get up then to feed her. And occasionally I'll, get to bed a little bit later, but I'm getting right in that 7 to 7.5 hour window of sleep. And so it's been really, really wonderful. If nothing else, it's been wonderful to wake up and have a cup of coffee and to get some of my own creative planning and just kind of Bible reading, like all that stuff done before my kids wake up, and I'm not kind of beholden to their needs immediately upon waking. So that one has been huge for me already. All right, so this last one is a little bizarre. It's called Trendelenburg, and it's named after a surgeon. You can look it up, and I encourage you to do so if you're curious, but this tweak is from this surgeon, and the idea is that you would increase the elevation of your feet at night for a certain number of hours by about, 6 degrees. There are a lot of people who shouldn't be doing this, namely anybody who has any eye issues or family history of eye issues. There is a large quantity of people who should not be doing this, and it's a little tricky to do because you're going to elevate the foot of your bed, but only for a certain number of hours. It really only works for people who have like a super fancy bed that can time this and program it out to do this. And then you have to be careful because once you've been laying at that angle for a certain amount of time, you can get dizzy when you stand up. So something to look up. It's kind of interesting if you want to read about it and about the history of it, but certainly if you plan to do it, please ask your doctor before you do that. But and he of course says that as well in his book. So that's the 21 tweaks right there. See how many of them you can implement. If you've got the app now, I want you to try using it this week and for the next couple of weeks and see what you find is the most difficult. I shared with you some of the ones that I'm struggling to make sure I get to. But let me also just say that he says at the end of this whole thing, the Daily Dozen and the 21 tweaks, these are really just suggestions. That they're the ideal scenario, and many of them complement each other, right? So if you're drinking a chai latte that has green tea and cumin and cayenne in it, you're gonna maybe be able to check off some of these things with just one meal or one drink. And so ideally you're getting all of these things every single day, but that is really something to strive for. Many of us, most of us won't be able to achieve that. But as he says in this book, and as many of the pioneers in this kind of health movement have said, look, we don't need to be telling people to do what we think they can achieve or what we think they can handle. We need to be telling people what would be ideal and let them decide what can they handle, what can they achieve, what kind of adjustments can they make. So that's why I'm sharing all this with you. If any of these were extremely interesting to you, dive into them a little bit more on his website or through the app. Again, that icon can take you to several of the videos on his website to give you a little bit deeper of an understanding behind each of them. Or again, another plug, if you haven't yet, pull out this 600-page book and dive into it. We've got a few more videos left, but I just wanted to share those tweaks with you. I've been excited to share that one with you on this app because I really do feel like it's been beneficial. I'm not checking them off every day, certainly not, but I like to pull them every so often and just kind of see where am I falling on my day's meals. All right, I hope that's been helpful to you guys. If you don't have the app yet, please get it. Bye.